Before the schedule, I believe we can start, and I can see that almost everyone is around the table, if not everyone. So let's have some time buffer for longer speeches or longer discussions later on in the course of the day. Dear Minister, the Secretary General, the Chair of the Administrative Council, Governor, Vice Governor, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors and members of the Administrative Council, it is a pleasure to welcome you to the 56th joint meeting of the Council of Europe Development Bank, and I'm happy to open this session now. As you know, this meeting was originally planned for 2021, but due to the COVID situation at this time, it was postponed, and here I must thank again to the Greek authorities, to the Minister, and to our colleague from the Governing Board, Mr. Panos Beglitis, for agreeing to host the meeting 2 years later. Due to this agreement on their side, we are able to meet together in this beautiful place today. Since our meeting in Dublin last July, we are still witnessing the atrocities linked to the Russian aggression in Ukraine, and the bank continues to provide support and financial assistance to the neighboring countries to overcome the humanitarian crisis, and now that the country's accession to the CEB is imminent, the bank should stand ready to rapidly intervene in Ukraine. Let me also welcome the Ukrainian ambassador who is attending this meeting today. Lastly, I would also like to refer to the 4th summit of the heads of state and government of the Council of Europe that was recently held in Reykjavik, notably the role that the CEB could play in contributing to the implementation of its outcome, and the speech that was presented at that time by our governor, stressing the role and capabilities of the bank to support the priorities of the Council of Europe. I believe Madam Secretary General could elaborate further on that in her speech later on. Before moving to the adoption of the agenda, I would like, since this is a joint meeting, I would like to give the floor to our Chair of the Administrative Council, Ms. Miglė Tuskienė, to say a few words and to welcome you again.
Thank you, Marinela. Indeed, let me also welcome all participants, and I would like to join you on behalf of Administrative Council in thanking Greek authorities for organizing this wonderful event. Thank you very much. We're not only happy to be in this historical, wonderful city, but we can also be proud of the performance of a bank we witnessed in the course of last year since our meeting in Dublin. Bank once again confirmed to be able to adjust to changing circumstances. Bank once again confirmed its ability to respond to social needs in Europe. Bank once again confirmed its name as a trustful partner. Marinela, you referred to the bank dealing with consequences on Russian war on Ukraine, and that's very much important indeed. We have other examples. Bank reacted in events in Turkey, devastating earthquake. Bank was there to help people to deal with consequences. And not to mention all other projects we have in our member countries which are really highly needed. I'm happy to tell CEB family is growing, and now Ukraine is exceeding bank. That's really great. Let me remind, back in 2020, Andorra joined the bank and became a member of CEB. I hope that, again, remaining member states of Council of Europe, and I hope you have a discussion in Strasbourg, could also consider joining CEB, and that governor emphasized in a summit in Reykjavik. So I think that would be really great for the increasing of membership. Let me finish by recalling a few very important moments, very important decisions we took last year. Strategic framework. We agreed on 5-year strategic framework last December that provides sharper focus on health and social care, education and vocational training, but also, among other things, it sets path for CEB initiate activities in Ukraine. We also took a decision on capital increase. So now we have strategy, we have means, and we do have excellent cooperation among ourselves, among collegial organs of a bank, when we need to take timely, important decisions. So I do believe those are three main ingredients which again will lead us to yet another successful year for the bank and for its shareholders. I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Miglė. And now let me inform you first that this first part of the meeting will be open to the media and to the press, and after the interventions by the representatives of the government of Ukraine under the agenda item 4, the media will be invited to leave the meeting room. The last part of the agenda, item 4, will then be examined in camera. Let's move on to the adoption of the agenda now. I believe all the members around the table are ready to adopt the agenda as presented in the document dated 7th of June 2023. I see no objections, so the agenda is adopted. And now let's move to the second item of the agenda of the joint meeting, which is listening to the addresses of our guests and also hosts, particularly our Minister the representative of the Greek government. Minister, it's an honor to have you among us this day, and thank you for the quality of the interaction between the bank and your government and the country as a whole. I would like also to thank you on behalf of all of us for the warm welcome and for the great organization and the collaboration with the bank for having this meeting here. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Esteemed Secretary General of the Council of Europe, esteemed Governor of the Council of Europe Development Bank, distinguished members of the bank's governing bodies, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my special honor and a great pleasure to welcome you all to the city of Athens for this prestigious event. Greece, since the beginning of its modern history, has been a staunch advocate for international cooperation and solidarity among nations. A practical confirmation of this attitude was, back in 1956, its placement among the 8 founding member states of the respectful organization that we have the honor to host here today, the Council of Europe Development Bank, an institution that, in the aftermath of the Second World War, started its long and successful journey as a small resettlement fund for refugees and displaced populations. It evolved steadily into a strong, fully-fledged multilateral development bank, a bank that has been inextricably linked with the evolution of post-war European history. Created in a war-torn Europe, CEB was the first European multilateral financial institution, shouldering the unique mission of strengthening social cohesion, not only as a developmental goal, but above all as a necessary condition for re-establishing democracy, human rights, and the rule of law in a continent exhausted by violence and totalitarianism. Those, after all, are the 3 core values of the Council of Europe, CEB's parent organization, if you allow me the expression, which still serves as a vigilant custodian of the same principles in an era when the threats of past are menacingly returning to Europe and to the world. A tangible manifestation of this role played by CEB is the recent rapid response of the bank in the Ukraine crisis. CEB, like the Council of Europe and other international fora, not only immediately condemned the Russian aggression, but also was the first multilateral development bank to provide immediate aid to refugees from Ukraine, the bank was in a position to respond rapidly to urgent needs on the ground by immediately allocating 10 million euro in donor grants. During 2022, about 1.3 billion euro, corresponding to 1/3 of its total lending volume for this year, were directed to supporting member states' efforts in accommodating medium and long-term needs of the refugees. On top of that, during last year's joint meeting of the bank's governing bodies in Dublin, it was agreed as a gesture of solidarity that Ukraine's future membership in CEB will be at no cost for the country. Greece applauded this politically significant act and welcomes today the Ukrainian government's representative in the present meeting. Before closing, please allow me to make a short reference to some less emotionally charged but also important issues. CEB has always been a strong ally to Greek endeavors. During the last 5 years, a new chapter was opened in the relationship of Greece with CEB. Thanks to the initiatives of the Ministry of Development and Investments and with contribution of the representatives of the bank, a long period of inertia of CEB's lending activity in Greece is over. Several new and important projects were identified and financed. As a result of this laborious joint effort, more than 350 million of new financing has been approved in the sectors of civil protection, healthcare, natural resources management, and SMEs, out of which 272 million have already been disbursed. And this is only the beginning. The Greek economy is dynamically emerging from a period of crisis and is looking forward to the bank's contribution in its development prospects, not only as a source of reliable and low-cost financing, but also and mostly as a source of valuable expertise, especially in areas where CEB has a long presence and Greece has a strong potential. Areas such as the microfinance sector, the digital shift of the economy, the promotion of green growth policies, and the adjustment in a low-emission economy. Dear all, closing this brief greeting, I would like once again to express my deep appreciation to the contributors of this great event and to extend my heartfelt wishes for a fruitful and productive joint meeting. Together, let us chart a path towards a resilient future, one that leaves no one behind and upholds the values we all share. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for your kind words. Thank you once again, Minister, for your kind words. And now it's my pleasure to give the floor to the Secretary General and to welcome you formally to this joint meeting, which once again confirms the good relations between the Council of Europe Development Bank and the Council of Europe we've witnessed in the past years. Please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente, Madame la Ministre, Monsieur le Gouverneur, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, chers collègues et invités. Je tiens tout d'abord à remercier de ma part les autorités grecques d'avoir organisé cette réunion conjointe. La Grèce, comme ça a été déjà dit, est l'un des membres fondateurs de la Banque depuis 1956. Et elle est restée un membre actif jusqu'à ce jour. Madame la Ministre, les habitants de votre pays ont bénéficié des financements de la Banque de diverses manières, et ce, depuis de nombreuses années. Et je suis heureuse d'apprendre qu'il y aura demain une présentation montrant l'impact positif de ces projets. De même, la Grèce a contribué au financement et à l'organisation de la Banque, en veillant à ce qu'elle soit également là pour les autres lorsqu'ils en ont besoin. L'Ukraine est au premier rang de ces pays. L'agression brutale, illégale et continue de la Fédération de Russie a causé des souffrances de toutes sortes dans le pays. Et au sein de sa population, les terribles pertes de vies humaines, la destruction de maisons, d'entreprises et de biens de toutes sortes, une inflation sans précédent depuis des décennies. L'année dernière, la réunion conjointe de Dublin a décidé d'accéder à l'Ukraine l'adhésion à la banque à des conditions de coût zéro. Ces décisions s'ajoutent au fait que la banque ait été l'un des premiers acteurs à fournir une aide d'urgence aux réfugiés ukrainiens. Sa décision en novembre dernier de créer un fonds de solidarité pour l'Ukraine afin de fournir une aide supplémentaire et l'adaptation du nouveau cadre stratégique de la banque, qui débutera cette année. Elle permettra de soutenir la reconstruction et la réhabilitation des secteurs socio-économiques de l'Ukraine et qui s'inscrit dans le cadre plus large du plan d'action national conjoint du Conseil de l'Europe sur la résilience, la relance et la reconstruction. Tout cela est juste important. Il montre que la banque fait de son mieux pour ceux qui en ont le plus besoin. Je salue le progrès dans la procédure d'adhésion de l'Ukraine à la banque et j'espère recevoir bientôt la notification officielle. Cette adhésion permettra à l'Ukraine de bénéficier pleinement de notre banque. Et je félicite et remercie les personnes présentes dans cette salle et de toute la banque pour leur dévouement à un pays qui mérite si clairement nos efforts collectifs. Tout cela permettra d'entendre la solidarité, l'inclusion sociale et les droits sociaux aux Ukrainiens, conformément aux valeurs et aux normes qui sous-tendent la Banque de développement du Conseil de l'Europe et le Conseil de l'Europe dans son ensemble. Pour faire avancer ce travail et d'autres, je sais que la Banque continuera à se coordonner étroitement avec les autres parties de notre organisation et avec d'autres donateurs internationaux. Cette coordination et l'entretien de partenariats stratégiques permet de maximiser l'impact dans un monde de plus en plus imbriqué et interconnecté, où les finances sont souvent mises à rude épreuve. La valeur de cette approche ne peut être sous-estimée. Les relations en constante évolution qu'elle développe avec d'autres institutions financières internationales sont également essentielles et donnent une importance accrue à l'impact social unique de la banque. Looking forward, we cannot, of course, predict all of the future developments and emergencies that will create demand for grants and support. The financial crisis of 2008, the recent surges in migrant numbers, and Russia's appalling violence in Ukraine produced effects that were not immediately predictable, nor, of course, was this year's devastating earthquake in Turkey, which caused such destruction and suffering, and to which rightly the bank pledged 500 million euros at the International Donor Conference in March. When the unforeseen occurs, it's right to respond. But equally, some issues are predictable, and we can be quite sure that ongoing environmental harm and climate change will lead to increased demand on the resources of governments, international organizations, and the Council of Europe Development Bank. I know that there is already high demand for bank resources to mitigate environmental impact and to support communities whose living conditions are under threat. Indeed, protecting the environment has been a long-term priority for the bank, and this is well understood by our member states. Last month, European leaders gathered in Reykjavik for the Council of Europe Fourth Summit of Heads of State and Government. This was a vitally important moment for our continent. The leaders recommitted to the values and standards of our organization with a register of damage and other measures to ensure accountability for the crimes committed against Ukraine, new principles of democracy by which to measure the health of democracies, and identify and address democratic backsliding, and support for applying our timeless values to the new and evolving challenges of today, including violence against women, artificial intelligence, and the environment. The outcome document makes an explicit reference to the bank's role in this respect, a mark of the leader's understanding of its impact on this, one of the greatest challenges that our societies will face. The summit recognized the political right to a clean, sustainable, and healthy environment, building on existing tools, including our environmental conventions, recommendations, and related judgments of the European Court of Human Rights, and looking ahead to the new instruments on which the organization is at work, including one on the environment and human rights, and one on environmental crime in particular. So we are on a twin-track approach here. The Council of Europe will continue to evolve and its capacity to address environmental challenges, and the bank will doubtless enhance its activities in this area too. Our aim, of course, is a shared one, to ensure that the vulnerable get the help they need and that the social rights to which everyone is entitled are not put in jeopardy. Ladies and gentlemen, it is good to see that the bank is becoming increasingly visible, both within our organization and in our member states. Its actions and achievements have prominence within the work of the other Council of Europe bodies, including the reports and recommendations of the Parliamentary Assembly. And the recent capital increase approved by shareholders is testament to the success of its work, faith in the future, in the bank's future, and a shared understanding of the further good that you are set to do. So I look forward to seeing that take shape. And of course, I wish everyone here a successful joint meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the kind words, Madam Secretary General, and for recognizing the increasing role and visibility of the CEB into fulfilling the priorities of the Council of Europe. And now it's time to turn to the Governor to listen to his answer and his speech, welcoming you here in the Joint Meeting. Governor.
Thank you. Minister of Development and Investments, Secretary General, chairs of our two boards, members of our two boards, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really honored by the warm welcome of Minister Louri-Dendrinou and our Greek hosts. For myself, for all of us as Europeans, to be welcome in Athens is a special thrill, the cradle of democracy, the very birthplace of Europe, which is nonetheless the main character of a Greek myth. But not only do we return to the roots of European civilization, we also reconnect with the roots of the CEB, as the distinguished speakers who spoke before me. Indeed, Greece is one of the founding members of our bank. Today, the most salient element of our meeting is the celebration of the adoption by the Ukrainian parliament of the law that allows the country to join the CEB as our 43rd member. This is the culmination of a momentous and challenging year. At our joint meeting last July, this gathering enthusiastically endorsed the request of Ukraine to become a member and agreed to make accession possible at no cost for the country. Today we will have shortly the great honor of having the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development of Ukraine, Minister Kubrakov, and the Minister of Finance of Ukraine, Minister Marchenko, who will connect remotely. They will update us firsthand on the urgent needs and priorities of the country, and most importantly, of what they think the CEB can do to help. In fact, for the CEB, the upcoming accession of Ukraine is testimony to the confidence that the country and all other members put on the CEB capacity to deliver on the special contribution to Ukraine's recovery that the CEB can give, and even more urgently, what the CEB can do to relieve the pain inflicted to Ukrainian people by the brutality of the Russian aggression. We are proud for your confidence. We commit to deliver results that prove that this conference is well placed. Moreover, for Ukraine, joining the CEB is yet another way to reaffirm its unwavering commitment to human rights and democracy, to integrate further in the European family of institutions. Notwithstanding the difficult times and the agitated financial markets, 2022 proved a very successful year for the bank, and on both sides of the balance sheet. I will tell you in a minute what I mean by that. Since we last convened in the joint meeting, the CEB has been really busy on many fronts. Overall, the bank has approved 36 projects in 16 member states for a total of 4.2 billion. The benefits of the CEB social investment are clear. Let me just quote some examples. Since 2020, the CEB projects completed across Europe led to the creation and preservation about 750,000 new jobs. And new and improved social infrastructure generates business for millions of citizens. The CEB was, it has been recalled, among the very first financial institution to mobilize resources to support people fleeing from the war. And indeed, our largest ever single loan, 450 million, was given to Poland just to support the country to this, in this effort. On the financing side, we have issued our highest ever volume of social inclusion bonds for more than 2 billion. The issuance were not only denominated in euros, but also in US dollars and in Swedish krona. This shows that there is a great interest on the part of the financial market to give a special contribution to the efforts that the international community is putting in having a more sustainable development, a development that includes social inclusion. And the CEB has had really a leading role in building this market, and that's what I meant, success on both sides of the balance sheet in pursuing our mission. Looking ahead, we are going to address the challenges with the priorities put forward in the strategic framework, which you approved last December. There, the key priorities of the CEB are shown and in a very precise way. Support to Ukraine, but then focus on the key social sector, healthcare, affordable housing, education. These are the core sectors, but still are the ones where the most vulnerable have poor access to. A crucial feature of the strategic framework is our vulnerability lens. This criterion is applied systematically to the selection of all projects so that finances reaches those who need it most. No one must be left behind. At the same time, we remain responsive to evolving needs. And this was clearly shown, as it has already been recalled, by our quick reaction to support Turkey after the devastating earthquakes. Indeed, we had already a special meeting of the board to approve 200 million financing. To achieve all this, we rely on you for your support and engagement. The CEB social mission is more urgent than ever, and your historic decision last December to strengthen the CEB capital base was both necessary, welcome, and very timely. We look forward to its rapid implementation. The effectiveness of the CEB comes from its agility in targeting its actions when and where they matter most. Each action, we see it like a stitch that strengthens Europe's social fabric. The CEB is proud to have the skills and experience that such an important work required, particularly at times like now, where successive crises erode that very social fabric. Let me conclude. The CEB's financial strengths and expertise are assets at your disposal. They are there to promote the values of the Council of Europe, to protect the most vulnerable, to assuage the suffering of populations hit by catastrophes. We are proud to serve you in defending and implementing these values. We are committed to work flat out to do so. We are honored that from today we can also do that to the benefit of Ukrainian people in Ukraine. Ultimately, the CEB is proof that by working together, Europe can forge a brighter, more inclusive and more peaceful future for all, leaving no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. And with this, I'd like to transfer the role of the chair of this joint meeting to my colleague, Miglė Tuskienė. Thank you.
Thank you, Marinela. And let us move to agenda item 4. Under this agenda item, as already alluded by Governor, we will have 2 remote interventions from Ukrainian authorities' side. First, we will listen to the intervention by the Deputy Prime Minister for Restoration of Ukraine and Minister for Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development, Mr. Oleksandr Kubrakov. It's my understanding he will be giving a presentation to us, and then that will be followed by the speech of the Minister of Finance of Ukraine, Mr. Sergii Marchenko. After these interventions, as already mentioned by Marinela, media will be invited to leave the meeting room, and we will continue our discussion in camera with exchange of views among ourselves. So it's my understanding that we have Ukrainian representatives connected, is that correct? Yes. So then I hope we will be able to see them on screen soon. Deputy Prime Minister Kubrakov, it's a real pleasure to welcome you today at our joint meeting of a CEB, albeit in virtual format. We look forward to your presentation, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Dear colleagues, first of all, I would like to say thank you to all representatives of Council of Europe Development Bank for your support in Ukraine's aspiration to become a member of the bank. We appreciate assistance the bank has already provided to Ukrainians by immediately responding to the challenges posed by unprovoked, unjustified, full-scale invasion of Russia. I'm pleased to announce that we are about to complete all internal procedures required for Ukraine to become a full member of the bank. The support of our partners and friends is incredibly important in these difficult times. Now, if it's possible, I start a very short presentation. First of all, if it's possible, next slide, please, slide 2. Over the year of the full-scale invasion, Ukraine suffered catastrophic damages and destruction. Slide 2, please. According to the Rapid Damage and Needs Assessment, RDNA2, conducted jointly with the World Bank and United Nations, as of 24th of February of this year, 2023, Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction needs reached more than $400 billion. In particular, the housing sector needs $68 billion, the health sector needs $16 billion, and the education sector requires about $10 billion. The recovery needs for 2023 at the end of this year was about $14 billion. However, the number is growing every day, and recent events on 6th of June, the Russian army committed another crime by blowing up a dam on the Dnieper River in Novokakhovka, and this strategy has caused terrible consequences for environment and made dozens of cities and villages uninhabitable. About 80 cities, villages now evacuated from them people, and about 2,000 buildings under the water. So, I mean, just at the stage when we're analyzing what is happening and trying to stop this catastrophe as soon as possible. In view of this, is now extremely important for us to create decent living conditions for every Ukrainian, to provide shelters and access to social infrastructure and basic needs. Next slide, please. The priorities of housing policy are now to carry out capital repairs in damaged apartments building and to provide housing for internally displaced persons. Next slide. There is also an urgent need to build new healthcare facilities and reconstruct existing ones, especially on the occupied territories. Our aim is to provide at least basic services, at least to have one hospital with basic services for such the occupied towns, villages, and cities. Next slide. In times of war, it is vital for us to ensure the Ukrainians receive quality and timely medical services at all levels, because, again, as I mentioned, in small cities and in small towns, where, again, healthcare services is the basis in case if we are planning and our aim to come back our people back to Ukraine, to allow them a possibility to live on the occupied territories. We need just to start providing at least basic healthcare services as well as other, but healthcare is critical. Next slide, please. In particular, it is important to create rehabilitation centers for veterans and people who have been disabled as a result of hostilities. Unfortunately, their number is growing every day. Yes, now we are talking about thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people who will require rehabilitation. And our aim just to have such facilities in each region, and especially in the western part of Ukraine, because again, it's critical number of such people, who required rehabilitation, who will need rehabilitation, is growing each day. It's absolutely true. Next slide, please. Another important direction is to ensure access to education for every Ukrainian, because again, if we are talking about bringing our people back to Ukraine, we understand that healthcare will be first basic services, second education, kindergartens, at least basic. Some schools just we definitely need this, because otherwise people won't understand how they can be active and participate in economy life of our country, and to where they can live their achievements. Next slide, please. As part of this, it is planned to create kindergarten, secondary and higher educational facilities, as well as lifelong education and retraining institutions. We are working on typical projects, again, with our colleagues from European Union, from some on bilateral level. We're also discussing receiving of typical design documentation, which we can use in our country as well. Next slide, please. This will help, as I told, adults who lost their jobs due to the war, as well as internally displaced persons and veterans to acquire new specialization. Next slide. In close cooperation with regional and local authorities, we are working on restoration projects in 6 pilot communities in 5 regions. These communities were destroyed significantly and is to be restored comprehensively. We are talking about totally destroyed, almost totally destroyed communities, but mostly in agricultural districts, and but again, like people already in many of them, farmers and agricultural companies, they demand territories and people, they can have their jobs, but from our side we have to provide them basic services in these communities. Currently, next slide, please. Next. Currently, we formed an approximate list of pilot communities that then can be restored first. This list includes communities that were under occupation and there before not only suffered destruction as a result of shelling, but also significantly lost the level of administrative capacity. Next slide, please. The restoration of infrastructure in communities will facilitate the return of local residents to their homes. For this, restoration should not be just plugging the holes, it should be carried out according to the principles of build back better, on the basis of energy efficiency and with the creation of inclusive infrastructure. On the level of legislation, now all restoration projects just they have to be inclusive for all people. To have infrastructure have to be inclusive. Next slide, please. As you saw, the projects are in different social spheres, like houses, social infrastructure, and we need to restore schools, hospitals, administrative and cultural centers, as well as some transport infrastructure. Next slide, please. Dear colleagues, I want to say thank you once again for helping Ukraine in these difficult times and hope for further fruitful cooperation. And again, it's a great honor for us became a part of like the Council of European Development Bank for our country. It's a great honor. Thank you so much.
Dear Deputy Prime Minister, thank you very much for your presentation. Indeed, needs are huge and it's very unfortunate we are growing every day. But please be reassured, CEB as well as other financial institutions stand ready to play a major role in reconstruction of Ukraine. So now I would like to invite Minister of Finance, Mr. Marchenko, to address the audience. I do understand that Minister of Finance will be instrumental in the setting up of CEB financing projects. So, do we have a minister on?
We are not sure if he's physically there, so could we give him?
Okay, let's pause for a minute just to establish a connection with Minister of Finance. Colleagues, I suggest we continue our meeting. I was informed we still need some 10-15 minutes to establish connection with Minister of Finance of Ukraine. So I suggest now we listen to the governor. I would like to invite governor now just also to give his view and broader picture how you see the CEB activities in Ukraine. So floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. What I believe is marking today is the watershed between the help that the CEB could provide to Ukrainian people outside Ukraine and now what we are going actually to do in the country. And there we are going to have two important points of reference: coordination with Ukrainian authorities and coordination with our peer institutions. Let me start with the first point about the way we intend to operate, to collaborate with Ukrainian authorities. As you have seen, the Vice Prime Minister already focused on his presentation on the sectors that are relevant to our mission. And indeed, this is, of course, no chance, but rather is already showing that the context at the operational level between the CEB and the Ukrainian authorities are already up and running. So the needs are huge, resources are limited, so there is an issue of who is going to set the priorities, and this on this there is a absolute clear understanding that the priorities are to be set by the Ukrainian government. And indeed, we have seen that in all the three core areas of our intervention, health, education, and social housing, there are projects already in the making where we could concretely and rapidly be of help. Before going to give you a bit more of details of what is in the pipeline, I'm keen to flag to you the other polar star of our intervention: coordination with the other international financial institutions. Collaboration with other IFIs, among them with us, has always been quite active. But the difficulties of operating in Ukraine, the many challenges that operating in a country at war pose, have acted as a catalyst in making the cooperation ties mechanism even stronger and more efficient. There are periodic meetings among the heads of multilateral development bank. There have been ministerial meetings at the margins of the IMF and World Bank annual and spring meetings, where the representative of the Ukrainian government and the CEB and other MDB heads have been invited exactly to define priorities and how to coordinate ourselves. This is then to be translated in very concrete and precise discussions that are then defining the possible pipelines of projects that are being discussed. Let me start, for example, with the health sector. The health sector is one where the CEB has a long tradition, has an expertise, is going to operate in a new country for the CEB, in a country where instead our MDBs had already some experience. So currently we are discussing with the World Bank a possible joint project in the health sector. Still on the health sector, we have identified an area where there is a particular demand for intervention, which is the area of mental health, especially for children. This has been a very delicate area of healthcare, which has become even more important following the brutality of the war and the terrible scars that this has left in the soul of children. And this is indeed something that certain European leaders, I have in mind most notably President Macron, flagged as an area where the CEB could have a particular value to add. On other areas also we are thinking about projects, but I understand that now Minister Marchenko is ready to address the audience. So of course I'm very happy to leave the floor to him.
Thank you, Governor, and let's check if we are able to establish connection with Mr. Marchenko.
Hello, can you hear me?
Good morning, Minister. Yes, we can hear you. We can't see you for a moment, but yes, we can hear you. That's good already.
So I was muted, Honorable Marinela, Petrova, Honorable Carlo, Monticelli. dear ladies and gentlemen, attendees, thank you very much for opportunity to join the meeting of the government bodies of the Council of Europe Development Bank. I would like to start by expressing our gratitude to the bank for approving special and exceptional financial conditions that allowed Ukraine to join the CEB. This time, Ukraine does not yet participate as a member of the CEB, but we're almost there. Yesterday, President Zelensky signed the law. Many steps have been taken so far for Ukraine to become the member of the bank. And I am glad that only some formal procedures are remain so that Ukraine to become a full-fledged member officially. And it's a special pleasure for me to be part of this meeting, and I'm sure this is a good moment to reflect on our future work agenda. I have no doubt that the decision on accession opens new horizons for development for both Ukraine and CEB. As regards to Ukraine, it will contribute to our financial stability, our recovery, and enrich aspirations to be part of the European Union. More than 15 months after Russia launched its massive, illegal, and barbaric war in Ukraine, we are here, strong and resilient, standing in unity with our partners. Terrorist country continues its attacks on the Ukrainian territory with devastating consequences. The evidence of this is the latest terrorist attack on Kherson region when Russia destroyed the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant. This is the largest man-made disaster. It caused enormous damage not only to the southern regions of Ukraine, but also significantly beyond its borders. About 80 settlements are flooded. Part of the flora and fauna can be wiped out, not only in the Kherson region, but for the maritime ecosystem, whole Black Sea. Several million people can suffer shortages of drinking water, and the food security is a new threat. The challenges that Ukraine is facing as a result of the Russia's illegal, brutal war are fully and directly correlated with CEB activities. First line of activity, sustainable and inclusive growth. It was an integral part of our strategy before the war, as certainly this will be a key element of the Ukraine post-war reconstruction plan. The war has had a profound and far-reaching impact on the economy, and large part of the country's capital stock has been destroyed. Some cities will be to be rebuilt almost from the scratch. According to joint second rapid damage and needs assessment conducted by the government of Ukraine and the World Bank, the European Commission, and the United Nations, only a year a full-scale war caused direct physical damage in the amount $135 billion or over 60% pre-war GDP. The damage is predominantly to residential buildings, transport infrastructure, energy, and enterprises. The cost of long-term reconstruction and recovery amounts to $411 billion. The urgent recovery needs for 2023 is $14.1 billion, for which we have allocated from state budget only $3.3 billion. Of course, these are incomplete numbers. The war continues and its price increases every day. So Ukraine desperately needs support of sustainable and inclusive growth from the ESB in multiple spheres. Restoration of energy infrastructure, humanitarian demining, restoration of housing, restoration of critical and social infrastructure, support to the private sector. These are the 5 top priorities defined by the government of Ukraine. My colleague, Minister Kubrakov, described it in more detail. Second line of activity, support and improvement of the quality of life of vulnerable groups and integration of refugees, displaced persons. The war has brought hardship for Ukrainians as livelihoods have been lost and access to basic services such as healthcare and education have been severely disrupted. Russia has provoked food shortages for every third family in Ukraine since the beginning of war, according to the World Economic Food Program. By the World Bank assessment, poverty increased from 5.5% to 24.5% in 2022, pushing 7.1 million Ukrainians into poverty and setting back 15 years of economic and social progress. Due to the mentioned circumstances, Ukraine has been forced to become one of the main contributors to refugees in the world since 2022. Nearly a third of Ukrainians' pre-war population, about 13 million, was displaced as well as internal as abroad. Over 8 million refugees registered across Europe and about 5 million internally displaced persons within the country. And I'm grateful for the assistance provided by CEB to the countries where our refugees found safe place. Third line of activity, sustainable ecological development. The scale of our potential cooperation against the backdrop of environment impact of the war is truly colossal. The new economy of Ukraine must be based on the latest green and digital technologies. It's obviously that without the help of international partners, it will be difficult to recover Ukraine. We believe that Central European Bank will pay Council of Europe Bank will play active and important role in this process. And we, on our side, are ready to be long-standing reliable partner. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Minister. And I think that's indeed a right moment for Ukraine to join the bank so that you would be able to fully benefit from CEB support. Colleagues, I do believe you will agree with me while expressing our satisfaction that Ukraine is joining CEB. Welcome to our family, Ukraine. Okay, let's continue our discussion, and I would now like to ask media to leave the meeting room. We stop our streamlining now.